Environmental collapse, mental health pandemics, a culture-wide crisis of meaning. Must Western civilization fall, and will we, its children, fall with it? I will explore the hidden layers of our psyche in search of answers.
At this square in Salem, Western law and mass hysteria collided. In February 1692, in the building behind me, then serving as a court, judges sentenced the first women to death for witchcraft. This marked the beginning of a wave of prosecutions, resulting in the hanging of 14 women and 5 men, to protect the community from the devil. It was systematic murder under the guise of law. Every step followed legal procedure. Witnesses were deposed, evidence catalogued, and arguments structured according to the era's most advanced legal and scientific reasoning. Judges examined women's bodies for witch marks, moles and birthmarks, offering a chilling metaphor for Western thought's enduring obsession with finding physical proof for imagined threats. Yet they also accepted spectral evidence as valid, such as reports of the devil appearing in the form of a hawk roaming Salem's streets.
The witch hunter's state of mind is one that's very much based in fear. There's a fear that drives us then and now to look for explanations around us. If your life is becoming more difficult, there's stress and tension that's building, we naturally want to find answers. So in the 17th century, people looked for witches. Witches could explain any number of problems around you, from a sudden illness or misfortune, strange weather patterns. Things like that could be explained by a witch who's concealed in your community. And by finding that witch, people felt like they were going to find the problem and their life was going to start to get better. And that's something that we see in the modern day as well. For example, in America, when we were in the midst of World War II and Pearl Harbor was bombed, the naval base, there was a panic that there were spies and traitors concealed everywhere. And as a result, approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans were forcibly arrested and sent to internment camps. It's a very similar pattern of behavior, and it's something that repeats over and over again.
Some of the Salem trial's judges were buried at this cemetery. We are not certain where is the collective grave of their victims. What we know is that they were pushed from a ladder with nooses around their necks and left to die slowly, suffocating in excruciating pain and panic, watched by righteous citizens who rejoiced, believing they were witnessing the fulfillment of God's justice. It all began with 2 teenage girls who, one day, started screaming, throwing objects, shrieking in strange voices, contorting their bodies and crawling under furniture. For the Western rationality of that era, there could be only one explanation: a spell cast by the devil's servants, witches. Identifying the witches among the young women in the neighborhood became merely a matter of time.
In the modern day, we certainly see scapegoating. We see it on a personal level, of course, and you see it on a global level. It's something that repeats over and over again. If we're experiencing prolonged fear and tension, we want to find an explanation. And often we look to the people who are different in some way, who push against perceived social boundaries. They're the easiest ones to scapegoat. And we see that scapegoating happen over and over and over again.
Beneath all this kitsch lies a darker truth. Salem reminds us that Western consciousness often builds neat, logical frameworks around deeply irrational cause. The judges who sentenced 19 people to death here didn't abandon reason. They use it as a weapon. The way horror has been turned into a tourist attraction says a lot. It shows how Western culture has a knack for turning what it once feared into something it can package and sell. But the question these dramatic displays really raise isn't whether witches were ever real. It's something more unsettling. Is the witch hunt itself built into the way Western thinking works? Does our prized rationality depend on inventing some irrational other to define itself against? Maybe the systematic targeting and removal of what doesn't fit isn't a flaw in the system, but part of its very design.
Western consciousness shows its true colors not in what it accepts, but in what it tries to cast out. The witch stood for a different kind of knowledge, herbal remedies instead of the rising medical science, intuition over church authority, female networks in place of male-run institutions. These ways of knowing weren't rejected because they didn't work, but because they operated outside the approved systems of power. Even today, we wrap our fears in complex rational arguments. We still use the language of logic to make collective panic sound reasonable. From moral panics to national security threats, the Western mind keeps finding ways to dress fear in the clothing of reason. The real question echoing through the streets isn't about reason defeating superstition. It's more unsettling. Is reason itself sometimes just another kind of superstition? Does Western consciousness use logic not to overcome fear, but to give it a polished, acceptable face? For Spell of the Western Psyche, this is Marcin Fabjański in Salem, USA, where our collective shadow refuses to remain confined to museum displays.